So this will be a keynote by Roman Maletz from the Institute of Waste Management and Circular Economy. Roman Maletz works together with Christina Dornack, who is a member of the DLGS management board. And the whole institute specializes in different issues regarding waste management. So the research interests of Roman Maletz lie in studying waste management issues in developing countries and in optimizing the recycling and treatment processes of different types of waste. He also teaches different topics related to this. He teaches Introduction to Modeling and Simulation Games in Waste Management, planning of waste management plans, and thermal waste treatment, and other related topics. So we are very glad that we can have this keynote today related to sustainable use of resources and the movement from waste management to proper circular economy. So we are glad to have you here. Roman Maletz, the floor is yours.
Yes. Hello and good morning from my side. I'm also very glad to have the honor to talk about the topic I defined with Christina together. And yeah, actually, I want to give you a warm greeting from Christina, but she's not available today for urgent issues. So I will give this presentation today. Okay, can you see my presentation already? Because I haven't here, I have just the notification. Okay.
Yes, everything's good.
All right. Okay, so if you have any problems to understand me or something, then just let me know. Okay, so when we start to talk about waste management and circular economy, this is somehow connected to a sustainable use of resources. Yes, because circular economy and waste management itself has always to do some with resources, not so much about energy, but more about resources. And the first question I want to state with my presentation is, can we use not renewable resources in a sustainable way, or can be the usage of non-renewable resources be sustainable? You know, this is quite a difficult question because we have a lot of non-renewable resources in waste management and in circular economy, and at least what we could say is that we can try at least to use non-renewable resources we put out of the earth in a more less non-sustainable way. I think this is quite important because sustainable and sustainability is a term which is used everywhere, and in the basic meaning, sustainability with extracting materials from the earth is not really possible. Maybe I will go on it later, but just to keep your mind a bit active, I want to start with this question. Okay, so when we're looking at first, what is in the European Union and how this big administration is coping with the problem of reducing resource consumption and getting to a circular economy. We have this big overall waste framework directive from the year 2008. There's always some adoptions, and when you start thinking about waste management and all the regulations, I think the most prominent regulation or issue in this administration politics is the waste hierarchy. I think everybody who is somehow related to environmentalism knows about this, and when we talk about efficient resource usage and circular economy, we have the first 3 steps. This could be circular economy. So we have this 3, the other 2 options that we can recover energy in any other way from wastes or material streams, or we have to dispose it. This is a waste hierarchy. What we say in the current status in the world, we could see that this is not a triangle in that way. It's more a pyramid, because in the world we have a lot more disposal than the first three most favored options. So therefore, let's have a look in the world. And when we are going to other countries to helping the administrations and researchers to get forward in waste management issues, we in quite the most countries see always the same pictures. Yes, we have a lot of uncontrolled landfills. We have a big informal sector. We have some economics that you see, because there is something from an own intrinsic motivation. We have economic aspects in this, but you see from a circular economy, the whole world is quite far away. When I ask you what is the share of landfilling in the world, we have around 2 billion tons of waste in the world, municipal solid waste in the world. And how much of this is still just landfilled, uncontrolled, or in the best case, in sanitary landfills? What do you guess? Yes, it's about 90%. So we are, I think, for me as a guy who was born after quite before the millennium, this is future now, and quite in the future with all our good developments, we have a landfill rate worldwide about 90%, and this is the situation all over the world. This is also a problem for the environment, but also when we see here, we can go in every I think emerging country already. They have you have this, in the for humans at least, better cases that you have it very far in rural areas, so it's only harmful to the environment, which is not good. Or in the other case, you have like you see here, maybe you've heard about this very famous landfill site in Akpobloshi in Accra, Ghana. There is a very famous waste electronic and electronic device landfill, where the people are working there and put out all the materials valuable for any other marketing. And yeah, therefore this is quite important, and we see this is not only the health issue, it is not only an environmental issue, but in the most cases it's also an environmental and health issue. Okay, and what we see here also is the countries can have a quite high share of mobility, of transportation. They have modern renewable energy usage, but waste management is always the last technological or the last developmental step in an emerging country, which has to be coped with, because everybody wants first to have every society wants to have first flat screen TV, or everybody wants to have at least one mobile phone, and only from this high point of wealth the people start thinking about the issues related to this resource consumption. So always waste management, like the name says, is also connected to economic challenges, and as we see here, like I said already, that you have a direct correlation between the waste amount and I think maybe GDP is not the best fitting indicator for measuring wealth, but at least it's a measuring device for measuring economic power. And you see here that you have with a quite high R that there we have a graph that shows the more economic power a country has, a society has, the more waste amount is produced. So as you see here, if you in the over left top, you see this is would be not the good because it's high waste amount and low economic power according to the meaning that the people have work and get money and get their life done. And then we have this here. This is a high waste amount and a high GDP, and the area we have to reach is to get a higher GDP or another more sustainable indicator for measuring wealth and low waste amount. So also interesting for this case here is that you should see how the countries develop over the years, over their development, you know, because we have I think done research about this, and the countries develop on different graphs, you know, and the shallower the graph for each country is, the better the country is developing. And if you can reach developing your GDP by not increasing your waste amount, then you reach the decoupling of the resource demand and your economic forthcoming. Waste management is not only about economic, you also have other issues have to be addressed with this, yes. It's also connected to health and to environmental protection, because this is easy for environmental protection is not so important for big countries like Russia, but even in Russia, we can say that they have also a high share of landfilling still, but even there they have a lot of problems by environmental pollution from the landfills affecting the groundwaters and all this and other environmental parameters. So also important is the availability of resources. That's what we try to establish, that we are not extracting resources from the earth, but extracting them from our secondary material streams, from our residues. Means especially for countries which have not so high resources, this is important, and also a chance for them to not be independent, dependent from resource supplying countries. It's also a climate aspect, as we will see later in the presentation, and it's also an aspect of how government, how a policy or a society is going, how sustainable a country or how sustainable a country want to be, and how aware all this political system is about their environment and the development of a sustainable life. So for waste management or circular economy in Europe, we have to decide what is the status of a circular economy, what is the status of the resource consumption out of secondary materials, secondary raw materials out of our waste streams. And we can see here all the European countries, started by the Romania and ending by Sweden. And you see the lower blue you have, the more recovery, the more use of resources you have, and the more you can consider the country as being resource efficient or using their secondary resources. So here you have blue means landfill, the share of landfilling in a country, and you see that in the right countries we have high share of recycling and composting, which leads direct to secondary resources. We have also quite high share of incineration. This is discussable for if this is a reuse of the resources, or is it just a better word for getting rid of the material. I think for countries which have low own energy supply our own energy resources and not the possibility for being renewable energies. This is also a chance, and also countries, as you see here, for instance, Denmark has a quite high share of incineration because this is a very expensive technology, and it's always only can be used when you have not so much space for doing any other waste management options. So Switzerland and Denmark are the very good examples for the for the incineration countries, because they are small and they are wealth and they have no space for doing else. But actually, the most important share, what I want to say is the column, the blue and the violet column. This is a column which represents the return of resources out of our waste streams, and somehow is the grade of reaching a circular economy. Let me lose some words about the situation in Germany, because in Germany we are claimed as one of the most resource efficient countries in the world. And how this was developed, if a country wants to be a resource efficient country, wants to achieve a circular economy, this takes time. This takes decades of hard political efforts. And in Germany, it started from around 1992, because that we have there was a quite expansion of wealth, and therefore high rising of waste, and there started the extended producer responsibility. This is a very paradigm in the waste management or circular economy, that you internalize the external costs for being responsible as a possible waste producer for the waste. So everybody who produced the packaging was responsible from that day for the environmental sound disposal, at least. This is just basically, there were some problems, a lot of years, but this leads to quite high recycling rates as one grade, also one indicator for circular economy state. So also the German industries have shouldered quite high voluntary commitments for conserving resources and avoiding wastes. And I want to discuss here also, this is a special situation, because a country which has a lot of resources has not such a high pressure to save resources as Germany. We are a technological country, and has no so much resources. So we can make, Germany wanted to make a business with this, because using secondary material and the technology connected to this was a chance for Germany to develop further in this direction, and for sure try to improve the environmental situation and the waste management situation. Yeah, so there were, for a lot of waste streams, separate collection systems established. We had a regulation about end of life, batteries, electric waste. Now we have a new packaging law, which wants to even try to improve the situation about the packaging. And yeah, this is a quite good development, but as we will see in the next slide, this is not only too easy as just looking at the recycling in the manner of resource use or secondary resource use. Here I want to come back to this, what I started to explain some slides before, that we have here the graph, how the waste development in Germany, or the waste amount, decoupled from the economic development in Germany, because Germany claims to be successfully decoupled their waste amounts from this economic performance. And as you see here, we have this parameter, which is the percentage of the waste amount divided by the economic performance normalized by 100. And you see here that we, in the last 20 years, we reduced our waste production per economic unit by 30%. This is understandable by the industries because as a people, when I produce waste, I don't have to care about how much waste I produce because this is not infecting my bill, you know. For an industry or for a company, it is important because they have to pay for their waste, and this is a quite so natural development and also a good instrument for policies if you want to decouple your waste management from the economic performances. You have to make your industry responsible for their wastes. And for this case in Germany, we can see that this is somehow quite successful, but we know this graph and the data are always subject to some assumptions which can quite lead to quite high standard deviations. So to look what Germany did to decouple their waste, they established what I said before, the extended producer responsibility system. Means every packaging producer is responsible for the packaging waste at the end, and it leads to a quite high source separation system in Germany, consisting of different types of bins. We have the packaging waste bin, mainly for the lightweight packaging. We have organic waste collection, which is also some challenges to cope with. We have paper collection. We have separated textile waste collection. The public is made to collect electronic equipment separately and bring them to recycling yards. And we have also bulky waste, which can go to the landfill. This leads to a quite sophisticated waste management collection system. As how successful this is, we can say, I think Germany was one of the first established this extended producer responsibility system, and the packaging waste law and the separate packaging waste collection is maybe not the best solution for collecting valuables, yes, like for example other plastics, but it is one good approach, and for Germany it was developed for 30 years now, and now we have quite good starting point to even improve it from now. As you see here, the development, this is also when we talk about waste going to landfill or waste overall, we always talk about residual waste because this is the waste which nothing else can be done. Yes, what we see here, we also have bio waste, which is actually a valuable resource. We have glass collection and paper collection. For glass and papers, we can see later, we have a quite good loop closing already. And by the 1990s, where the packaging ordinance was established, the extended producer responsibility was established. Until now, Germany achieved that the share of residual waste from 87% was reduced to 38%. And in the best case, we have here now 62% of valuables collected separately being possible to put in the market to use as resource to circle these material streams. How successful this here, because collection is only one point of the middle, and the problems we have here with this, I also will tell you a little bit later. What I said, because of the motivation, yes, in Germany and for the industry, it was quite easy to save waste. That's also the cause why the waste in the industry did not develop further. but the packaging waste is still emerging. Still getting bigger even in Germany. And as you see here, there's always a problem of allocation and how to make the people to do right, because this is not an intrinsic motivation. Yeah, if you think about yourself buying a coffee in the morning, or buying a pack of cheese in the supermarket, and it's not your intrinsic motivation to save it because it makes your life not better. It's just the motivation that you want to make the environment better, but it's not your own personal motivation. Industry has personal motivation and intrinsic motivation, and therefore policies always have to make aware. We have the situation in Germany here for 20 years now. There was a liberalization of the packaging responsibilities, and therefore nobody felt responsible for making the people aware how to collect separately everything. And therefore we saw a decrease in the quality of this source separation. Now we have another state, because there are some events and some political efforts to improve this again. But as you see here, this is for establishing a source separation as basis for producing secondary resources. We need a comprehensive awareness system, an awareness making system. To extract valuables for a resource recovery, we can establish different kind of separate collection system. And for 2-3 years ago, we had a big workshop in China with some Chinese professors and quite a lot of German waste management professors. And there was also a book established. I will show you at the end. And there where we discussed what would be best bin system for each country. As you can imagine, there's no one best option or one system which is best and fits all. So we always have to think what is looking at the boundary conditions in the world. Sorry, telephone, it's not mine. And or the explicit situation there, and then we can decide which is the best situation. Okay, so another short view on the different possible source separation systems here for German capitals. There was the study about this, and you see here these different points, different options for separate collection. You have door-to-door collection, which is the most comfort one for the public. Which is the most comfort one for the public. Then you have a commingled system for this is established especially in Britain, in England. You have bring points. This is also somehow collected somehow connected established in Germany, and you have this civic endemic site. So, and for starting a source separation, for starting resource production from secondary materials and from an emerging country, for example, you have to start from this point, because this needs a high level infrastructure and people and a lot of investive power to establish this. Another short view about the challenges to recover resources, closing the loop. When you're looking in plastics recycling or the plastics recycling chain, and we have here the steps, what all is needed or has to be done to produce at the end secondary raw materials. Yes, and we have here a collection step. We have sorting, first sorting. We have another different steps of processing, regrinding, and compounding to make it better. At the moment, we in Germany or in Europe, there are a lot of efforts, and I'm doing research about this already. Also, how we can improve this situation, because all in these steps we have output flows of residues, which means we are closing, we are narrowing our stream arrow, which could be looped back. So starting from a good collection from the people by a good high technology sorting machines, and also here in the last part. Yeah, wait shortly. Ja, hallo? Ja, Entschuldigung, ich bin gerade im Online-Meeting. Kann ich später nochmal kurz rufen? Danke. Okay, and therefore here we have a lot of developments necessary in the quality issues, you know, and all these output flows leads that you have here from 100% recycling, only some percents of looping back the material. And this is also to see recycling is not only for the recycling, because we should think from the end, what can we do with the product, and then we have to adapt our process, our recycling process, that this here is produce something sensible. Because we have in Germany, we wanted to do recycling because recycling is good and we want to recover, but at the end came out that we only some percent, and we will see this later in the numbers, produce recycled material for looping back. Yes, and therefore, because nobody wanted to have this secondary raw material, and when we start looking here, then we can adapt this process and make it more successful, even for a high comprehensive, high sophisticated waste management or circular economy status like we have in Germany. So therefore here also the numbers what I promised, we see here an investigation about the recycling rates compared to the substitution rate. So the substitution rate means the material, the overall produced material in a country in a year, which is replaced by secondary material, yes. And this is amount of the waste. The green columns are the amount of the waste which are being recycled. So where you have the problem, even if you have, for the PET bottle, for instance, we have 100%, almost 100% of going PET waste to the recycling. We also have only 25% of PET substitution. So another 75% of PET is primary resource material. And as we see, we cannot expect that we can close our loops completely. This is not possible. We can say goodbye to this imagination or zero waste. This is a good vision, and we should stick to the vision, but we have to be aware that this is not possible, because only with the numbers we have for the plastics recycling, which is my research field, we have around 15 million tons of plastics produced in Germany, and only 6 million tons of plastic waste generated in Germany. So even if you would with no any other process losses, we would use any of these 6 million plastic waste, which is quite far away from that. We only had a substitution rate for the primary material of 6 million by 50 million, near 30%. For the paper and the cardboard and the glass packaging, these are quite good examples for closing the loop, because there we have still quite high substitution rates. So most paper and cardboard production is made from already secondary material, from secondary use, as because of the good, clean, separate sortings and the material properties which enables a good looping back of this material. Summarize what I said in the last slide is the perspective or the wish of the European Union how we should cope with this material. This is a quite interesting part, because looking as a material stream, and the width of the line represents the amount, then they want to have always put something in it and only put allow something out, but with just biomass balance this would be not possible. The real, when we see and the status of circular economy in Germany, we have a registration of all waste streams. We have a separate collection of recycled materials. We have a very comprehensive and sophisticated sorting of packaging waste. And we have a good supply for recycling material, but we have still not, even in a very high waste management developed country, enough return to the production cycle. So this is the vision of the EU, and in real, it's like this. We have only a small share, and for the German case, we have around 12, or the European case, around 12% overall material which are recycled going back to the production industry. And so forth, we have to start here with the product that we can use the products here, that we have a demand shift from the raw material side to the secondary raw material side as new resource, which is what I said in the first slide, is at least less non-sustainable. There are a lot of approaches how we can achieve these circles, how we can use it, and as we see here, this is also a good example for a single person who wants to move something in the world, because the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, I think everybody knows, is from this Taylor girl, founded in the 90s or in the 2000s, I think, and it's a quite important institution now for coping the challenges connected to circular economy, and they draw a picture of a natural and a technical or as civilized circles. Yes, we have our biocircle, which uses the nature and the natural processes like bio-waste and bio-waste production and looping back the materials, and we have a material cycle and civilized cycle which are looping back the materials. And I was saying at the end, is this sustainable? If I put the plastics out of the earth, it could be sustainable if I use it in infinite often, but this is not possible. But this is I think for what we want to do or what we achieve, a good perspective, because it's always important in every aspect of life to have a vision, because then you're moving towards something and not only going stepping on the food. Okay, and there was some aspect mentioned before about the climate aspects of waste management. It's essential to close the loop to use secondary materials. And as we see here, for the German case, we have the development where in 20 years from 1990 to 2010, and the red line represents the net emissions of CO2 equivalents for the waste management sector. And it shows here that also even with avoided landfilling and incineration, which replaces fossil fuels, we had a quite high positive extraction of CO2, of carbon in the atmosphere. And we have here, and just by the year in the 2000s, now we have a net benefit for CO2. So the waste management sector leads to a reducing the CO2 amount going to the country. And this is important here only by the comparing to the fossil fuel share you have in your country. Because if you would have no fossil fuel production in Germany, we could not replace, and then we would have also some positive effects. But for the German case, we can say reducing fossil fuels by waste management sector, we have a net share of around 10 million tons CO2 equivalents avoided each year. Therefore, to summarize what we have here, so the term circular economy is a promising paradigm for a sustainable world, even not although not a real sustainable, but a less not sustainable world, and it leads to change in a situation and gives an opportunity for a global recycling sector, and to establish it also in countries, because landfilling and big industries is more not so economic beneficial for local administrations like the recycling sector, because it's small scale, and therefore you have a better local effects on the economic situations. We can say that we have waste collection is established in many parts of the world, but it's not really much. So we have still in the future, we are living now 2020, 90% of the waste in the world is going to landfill. I think every maybe 70 or 80% of the people above 18 years in the world have a smartphone, but only 1 of 10 persons are putting their waste not on a landfill. In future, what is very important, the production side has to demand recycling material, has to demand the secondary resources from the waste management, from our circle, but only with this demand, we can establish successful, effective, and efficient recycling circles. And also important that we need good recycled materials, because only good recycled material can be circulated meaningfully. And always we say this when we are around the world, because the social and economic development always goes faster, or with not more risks, with less risk, when you try to establish an sustainable and ecological development. Therefore, I'm ready with my presentation. I hope I could give you some insights in the challenges we have from moving from a waste management system, looking just what we can do with waste, to a circular economy approach, not looking as waste as something to dispose, just as a source of secondary resources. And therefore, I thank you for your attention, and hopefully we can have a little discussion afterwards. Thank you.